Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
Okay, so let's get started with the second session of the Global Transformation Festival. This session, is going to be pretty exciting. We're going to be, the theme of the session is health and well-being. We've got some very dynamic speakers, and I'm looking forward to getting going here. So I'd like to start off. Our first speaker is going to be Nikki Fogden-Moore. Nikki is a quantum leadership coach and best-selling author of Radical Self-Belief, Vitality, and Fitpreneur. She's the host of Radical Self-Belief, the Mojo Maker podcast, and she's the founder of Quantum Decision Making Program. Nikki is a proven expert who's dedicated to putting extraordinary leaders and individuals in the driver's seat of life and work. The biggest epidemic, she says, that we're facing in our modern world is overwhelm, anxiety, lack of clear decision-making, disconnection, depression, and stress. And she has 7 key steps that she says are a proven roadmap to break up the overwhelm for good and recognize survival mode, engage in true awareness and personal accountability. So, Nikki, I'm excited. So talk to me. Tell us what you got. You're muted, Nikki.
So this is a great forum that you've pulled here today. And hi, everyone. I don't know when you're going to listen to this, if you're listening live streaming or if you're going to check in later when it suits your schedule. So thank you for having me. You know, it's a unique group. I'm not sure, Mike, you probably want to just let me know how you want to run the session a little bit. Ideally, what I would like out of it is to set the scene and put some thoughts out there and maybe have 10 minutes or so of Q's and A's from anyone that's live to see how I can best add value. So, but in the meantime, I can kind of take you through a little bit of why, way before COVID, we had a much darker, deeper issue, which is a paralysis of overinformation and lack of self-belief in individuals, not only leaders, but at any level. And it's become more than an $800 billion industry coping with stress and dealing with the end results of it. This is in 2017, and now we're in 2021. So I don't know, Mike, with your permission, I just wanted to give a really fast kind of presentation to kind of open minds and discussions, and then happy to do some Q's and A's for a little bit. I know I've got to go at 12:30 New South Wales time. So what do you think about that, Mike?
Well, what we were planning was everybody start off with about 15 minutes of presentation. So, and then after everybody has the chance, we were going to do a panel discussion. If you can't stay for the panel discussion, I understand that you're running a tight schedule, and I really appreciate that you've squeezed enough time out of your schedule to come by and tell us. So drop some pearls, and I can tell you for sure we'll be discussing them whether you're there or not.
Great. That's always the way. Okay, well, let me just see what I can do to set the scene for you guys and perhaps open up this track and hopefully kick off this part of your presentation with some thought-provoking, serious accountability things. So if I'll share my screen, and Mike, maybe just let me know verbally if this is all viewing right now. So basically, I think what I wanted to do was just give you a really super fast deep dive around my philosophy of flow, not force. So usually at the moment, we are now having an opportunity in today's society where mindset and mindfulness and well-being have become the new diet. I remember, there was like Jane Fonda and aerobics and exercise, and then there was the diet industry, and then there was the gym industry, and now there's the mental gym industry. And it's become a massive opportunity for everyone to talk about getting woke, having a new level of awareness, understanding past patterns and shifts and paradigms. I work deeply in neuroplasticity and neuroscience, but what I try and do is make that radically easy for everyday life. So in order for us to kind of understand that there really should be no friction on any level, there was no hard drive or handbook that said we had to struggle for success. Like, it's just this weird underwritten theory that hard work comes with kind of blood, sweat, and tears. And in some cases, suicide, depression, and terrible results of trying to just do well in today's world. So I just wanted to set the scene with a couple of my mottos, and I thought it'd be fun to check off with a few quotes. I always talk about the 7 habits of truly woke people, because I think we have a lot of people that walk around saying they're woke, but if you were to dig deep and look under the hood, talking about it really doesn't display being aware. I think awareness brings a quiet humility to it. So just to kick off for a bit of fun, you know that you're aligned when you actually don't need to announce it. And I think the wonderful thing about the most successful people I've worked with is they're often the most unassuming people. They could turn up in board shorts and a t-shirt, and they could be, billionaires, but they would never talk about their wealth or their intellect or anything. They're just very humble and gracious, but super smart. So often those that are truly aligned are the least we would expect, because they just don't talk about it. Secondly, I think it's about not taking time for your mental well-being and your personal well-being, but getting out of overwhelm and understanding today's landscape means you actually have to make time for work-life blend, and there's nobody telling you that you can't. So we have a false sense of rules, a false sense of rules of engagement, that work or being busy or everyone else's needs are more important than our own. And that is in fact the opposite agenda of what the universe wants, because the better we are at putting our oxygen mask on first, the more capable we are of helping everyone else. But if we're constantly spreading ourselves too thin, then we can't feed the rest of the pride or have clarity, vision, and fortitude to deal with the responsibilities that we have as an adult. A third kind of alignment or woke thing is, judgment is so unnecessary. We can be discerning about what chemically or chemistry aligns with us, whether we like an idea, a project, a person, or a thing. But passing judgment is actually putting a projection onto someone else. So the wonderful thing about awake or woke is you're really just taking care of your own side of the street, and someone else's behaviors or actions are not your responsibility, and nor are they those to judge. So I generally say, if you're judging other people or you're triggered by other people, whether it's at work or at home and relationships, it's probably just an opportunity for you to look at yourself and think, why those people annoy me so much? Why am I judging and talking about other people in society when I haven't got my own side of the street covered? So when you're truly aligned, you really become, you don't need to talk about what anyone else is doing, because you become solely present and accountable to become the very best version of yourself, impeccable with your word, and you allow others to run their own lives as they see fit, whatever their tools are as well. Very, very important. And I think being kind or supporting others or being charitable isn't about buying a billboard space or telling everyone about it. The biggest donations we can do are when no one's watching. And so this kindness element is just part of human nature, which can be amplified without need for any validation. It just comes with a beautiful sense of reciprocity and flow and paying it forward. And one of the things that I love about aware leaders that have gone through this journey of breaking out of overwhelm and proving is that generosity of spirit and natural giving is just part of who they are. And they don't necessarily need to have a stamp for it or validation or use it as an opportunity to get in anywhere. And I think that authentic kindness is a beautiful value inside our generational impact at the moment that we can create a ripple effect on. One of the most powerful things as well, when you look at overwhelm, and as you guys go through this transformation conference, is we are bombarded with information. Even today's schedule is just hectic. There are so many amazing speakers and all these people that have done great things. So how do you as an individual discern when you can take enough information in and just sit with it for a little bit and trust your own GPS, your own decision making, your own tools, your own Akashic records, your own knowledge, however you want to formulate it? I think we have a lot of white noise. So taking that time out to quieten your mind and create space for vision, creativity, and to ask yourself questions is really, really important. And the one thing that I always say is replace fear with curiosity. Because even if there's a deep programming, or you're going through conscious relationship work or shadow work, or you're becoming a better leader by looking at how you can evolve, or a better parent or a better partner, instead of turning away from what scares you, if you can turn into that with a sense of curiosity and questioning, then you have an ability to reframe that as an opportunity for medicinal growth, for mental reframing, for an opportunity for neuroplasticity, to avoid a fear, fight, or flight based response to something and look at it with a completely new perspective. And the last thing that I think the most powerful thing, true leaders just walk the talk. So instead of coming out of a conference after 3 days and suddenly telling everyone they have to go and get a program or get a book or whatever else, they just quietly do the changes in their life. And that creates a sustainable, authentic ripple effect where people notice the difference and those foundations are solidly there. So I hope I'm not going too fast for everyone. I am a woman of speed, but the preciseness of all of this, if you need any of these things that you're listening to, by the way, please reach out. On the bottom of those tiles there, you'll see my social media handles, and I'm happy to share any of those quotes with you. So I think the next thing now is to move on to why we're all here, which is if it's not going to be you that's part of the change, then and part of the truth, then who is it going to be? So the question that I always talk about when I do masterclasses, especially globally, is just to ask the question, how are you showing up? How are you showing up just for your own side of the street? And the fact that we don't have to make these massive, huge, big shifts. We just have to go, what am I going to be accountable for today? Or what am I going to be responsible for in my life that's actually a reflection of the changes and the truths and the sovereignty that I want to see in my life or around me in my community. And my biggest statement of all is in this slide. We cannot operate in today's landscape with a 1960s hard drive. So all the modeling that I work on is allowing people to reframe decision making, to cut out all the distress and systems and processes that no longer serve us. A bit like a computer, you have to upgrade its software all the time. As individuals, we really have to upgrade our operating system and go, are the patterns, programming, and responses that we have from the past really going to serve us in the future? And if not, that's probably because we need to look at a paradigm shift to get the opportunity to empower individuals to have clarity again and start making conscious decisions, whatever the moment. And I think this is the most important part of all my work, is handing people their individual power back to go say, I'm making an informed decision for myself about this project, person, place, or thing, and that's how I feel about it, and I feel good about that, and I back it. And we don't keep comparing ourselves to old systems and judgments and things that are actually not even relevant anymore for today's society. So it's a big shift in not only how we want things to be, but actually how are we doing things differently that we can create internal change that then creates strong pieces of the puzzle. So keeping going, if I can flick this through. I want to talk about the biggest adage, which is fear of perfection or failure or growth or judgment. So when you start to move into making these changes and becoming a beacon of what you believe is important in life without lecturing, we tend to get a bit nervous because we're not going to be perfect at it. So what I speak about is truth conversations. You know, I think, I feel, I want, I need. There are 4 quadrants and how you can show up to have a truthful conversation without conflict. But we're not used to receiving the truth and not thinking it's something that is being given to us to change or that we don't have to fix. And we're not also used to providing our truth because we're not even asked for it so many times. Really right back to programming as children. So in a society today where we all have to work together, we have to get comfortable with what truth means. And that means it's not going to be perfect. So that can be as simple as saying no to gossip. So having a script to go, hey, that person's not in the room, I just don't partake in this stuff. And you're not going to get it right all the time. You could be gaslit or whatever, but all those tiny moments of our lives where we interact with others are all reflections of what we want to see in the world. So we can't suddenly go from 0 to hero. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's what we do next that matters. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think probably, Mike, this is the biggest thing, is that we understand what we should be doing. We understand what great could look like, but for some reason, often there's this internal handbrake and it can prevent us from saying something, from doing something, from changing something, or we just go, oh, it's too hard. So we go back into the walls of discomfort. So in order for us to move away from staying stuck in the devil that we know of life, we have to be able to put judgment, shame, blame, and guilt aside to take the first step. And that means recognizing that a lot of the lack of movement that we have in life is because we're afraid. We're afraid of being judged. We're afraid of being isolated. We're afraid of being shamed or guilted. And I'm sure there's many, many situations which each of you are listening to this can go, well, recently I know what that feels like. And I'm not going to talk about the exact topic here because we all know what it is, but there is a division in our society at the moment. Have you or have you not? And all of a sudden there's all this judgment and shaming and blaming going on that's not giving people the room to feel good about their decisions. And I think this is a really dangerous place to make decisions from fear. When you make decisions from fear, it never works out and you're constantly having to protect that space. So how do we actually move out of all this stuff into becoming your best asset so you can start to break up with overwhelm and go, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I can't think anymore. There's too many things, too much responsibility. I'm just opting out. The first thing you need to do is you've got to put your oxygen mask on first. You can't be an A-grade athlete, an A-grade leader, an A-grade parent, a person for yourself unless you are healthy, unless you have time and space to regroup for yourself, unless you have taken a moment to rest and just allow yourself to regroup. So that's why I call the rally analogy is that sometimes you have to pause on the side of the road and refuel before you race off into the unknown. But in the society where everything is instant, we don't refuel enough. You know, we're just going, and we're on to the next thing. We're onto our phones, then we're onto this and that and the other. And we're not putting our oxygen mask on first. Predominantly, most of the people in the well-being and coaching industry are amazing martyrs because they always put everybody ahead of themselves, which is actually making up for a deficit and thinking, well, when I'm enough, I can be more for others. But we're looking for a validation that we're always serving other people. So you have to be your greatest asset first, because from that strong foundation of good clarity, good mental clarity, good health and well-being, good longevity, and understanding you can make critical decisions without any brain fog gives you a much stronger foundation to operate from. But if you're just running from one thing to the other and snapping and not making conscious decisions, you're building up a whole lot of issues that can often lead to burnout, freak out, and opt out, or much worse, you know, financial, relationship breakdowns, health breakdowns that take a long time to recover from. And we just don't need to go through that. So how do you know when you are making decisions from your true self or your subconscious? If anyone ever tells you that you can get rid of your subconscious and erase it, I want you to tell me who told you that, because that is absolutely in all my learnings and coachings and teachings for 2 decades now. And if you go and listen to Eckhart Tolle or Dr. Joe Dispenza, or if you read any of the neuroscience and neuroplasticity medical books, and even behavioral science, part of our subconscious is always going to be with us. And that is about understanding that that subconscious part of who we are keeps us operating in this 3-dimensional world to some degree. Because if we were always like, oh, it doesn't matter, we did get nothing done. So understanding that our ego or our subconscious, our past programming and limiting beliefs that give us a false sense of security are always going to be there, means you can discern between the noisy, chatty, judgy, subconscious saboteur and the quiet, discerning self. So how do we do that? I always say, name your ego. Mine's called Bob. Bob's like the person on the couch that has the remote, and he wants to keep changing channels. You're just like, could you just stop on one channel? But no, he just was constantly challenging you. So once you name your subconscious, whatever you call it, some of my clients have got great names for this, you can understand that it's kind of got an alter ego, a different personality, a part of you that is falsely giving you a sense of security. So you can go, I saw you do that, Bob, but I'm just going to swipe to the left and I'm going to choose my next thought. Now, the easiest way to discern an egocentric subconscious programming thought from a self thought is that the self is usually very quiet. And until you get used to learning how to tune into your internal GPS, it's a faint yes, no, wait, hold, go forward. It's a very, very simplistic, clear answer to any of your questions. But sometimes in the beginning, when you're trying to access it, you can't quite hear it because it seems really faint. But your ego is the overly chatty one that goes, why did you do that? Well, you spent too much money. You're trying to lose weight. You've had 7 more pieces of chocolate. Those people won't like what you're wearing, blah. Like it's constantly sitting there on your shoulder, picking away all the time, giving you self-doubt, and also making a lot of extra energy in overthinking. So yourself doesn't really require any energy whatsoever when you tune into it to form a decision. Your ego takes a lot of energy, and it's always giving you a lot of conversation. So in American Indian terms, it's the white wolf and the black wolf. And the only way to move into feeding and getting a more audible link with yourself is to keep feeding your conscious decision making and to keep working on the programming of positivity and possibility rather than fear, blame, shame, and guilt. And to understand the core root of your fear-based decision-making and your triggers and lean into possibility of you being in charge of your destiny in the driver's seat. And that means understanding a reaction versus a response. So just because we get triggered by something doesn't mean we need to become defensive and shut down and fight back. It's actually an opportunity for things to be shown to us as an opportunity for growth. Which is, oh, I really got hurt that person said I was too noisy, or that proposal wasn't perfect, or instead of defending it and becoming afraid or hurt by a trigger or annoyed by something, that's purely a subconscious reaction. If you're in flow, you can go, well, that's really interesting. Why is it bothering me, that response? Why is this text message getting to me? Where is the injustice of that? And you can observe it from an owling approach, rather than being in the trenches trying to fight your way out of things all the time, which is what we've been taught to do from a very, very, very early age. You know, eat your vegetables before you have your dessert, perform this before you get that. So, you know, we're rigid in our thinking about someone's got it in for us, or that person's doing better than us, or whatever else. So there's a difference in communications and overwhelm between reactions versus response. And the fastest way to learn it is to press pause, is to take a breath before you do anything, is to sit there and observe what's just happened rather than react straight away. Because then you can give a response such as, hey, I received your email. I'll get back to you on Monday because I'm fully booked until then. Or thank you, I'll revert back when I've got time. Or leaving it because it doesn't even require a response. So creating a pause is really, really, really important. And just what I mentioned before is that I think as a society right now, the best gift that you can give yourself is to understand, you know, what you really think and feel and what you truly want, not what you think you should want or what you think you should need, but whether you're in a leadership position, you're running a business, you're creating a new family paradigm, you're making some conscious decisions for your health, for your kids' health, you're going through relationship changes. Communicating your truth doesn't need to be in conflict. And the first part of that is actually doing that with yourself. And you can apply this to any situation. But off the back of overwhelm, we have to sit down and go, you know, if there's something that's out of order in my life right now, what do I really think? How do I feel about it? What do I truly want as an outcome? And if I was truly honest, what is it that I need from that person, project, thing, or situation? And then you'll notice on the right-hand side, I've put blurts. So blurts are the bits that would go, well, it's really easy to write that, Nikki, but they're never going to say yes. I've never done that before, so how will this work now? I don't have enough money to do that. It's all the things that automatically set roadblocks before you've even begun the process of activating your needs and wants. And that is your subconscious going, why bother? Your subconscious keeping you in the same pattern of it's not worth making any changes. This is how society is. This is how my life is. So the moment you can take your power back and actually start being honest with yourself about what you want in your life, what you want to be as a leader, what you want to be for your business, what you want for your children, your community, or your collective, before you even have a conversation with anyone else, you get into the core root of what you need and want. And when you can do that, and when you can clearly articulate that without any conflict or need to sell in, it's truly a beautiful place to come from. And it's so powerful because you're not asking anyone else to be like that. You're just saying, this is my truth. And I don't need you to respond a certain way. I don't need you to jump through hoops. I don't need you to fix it for me. I just want to be able to say, this is my truth. And that's a very, very powerful step to move out of overwhelm. So in order to do that, once again, you've got to replace the fear of how you will be received with curiosity of why not. And you have to do the minutia work as well. And the last thing I'd say is that when we understand that life is a rally, that the conditions are always perfect, regardless of what you feel is being done to you or done to our society. Actually, everything is as it's supposed to be. It's purely our perspective. So I'm going to give you one little analogy. We're in the 54th floor of the PwC building. We've got two people in an elevator, and the elevator drops all the way down. And those two people have two separate responses. One person is in a heap, thinking their life's over, that what, as we would all do, right? Completely petrified, will never get in an elevator again, or just the worst possible thoughts. The other person is hooping and roaring and going, oh my God, that was amazing. We survived. How cool. And is more a Red Bull approach to going, this was unbelievable. I can't believe we walked out of this. Holy shit, we're so lucky. And the other person has just decided their life's over because they cannot get past what's just happened to them. So we are going to be tested more than ever in today's society. We're going to be tested for all conditions. And when we figure out that it's just all seasons, all conditions, all types of roads, just like the Dakar Rally, we suddenly can have a different perspective to go, how am I going to suit up today? How am I going to have agility instead of resilience? How am I going to find the joy in the journey? Regardless, there is no perfection required. Every single thing that we're going through creates an amazing blueprint for who we are as individuals and what we can bring to the table. And we should not be the same as each other. We should be individuals and ecstatic about it and able to tap into that more and more so that we have strong pieces of the puzzle to create a community and a collective and a world that is truly integrated and co-creative and collaborative. Because if we all try and be like each other, then we won't fit together. But if we're strong in ourselves and we know the conditions are always perfect, then we can overcome anything. So if you wanted to figure out a little bit about neuroscience with me, you can have a little listen to episode on my podcast, Radical Self-Belief on Thought Tinder. It's a funny little approach to reprogramming your brain. And I would just say anyone listening to this to embrace the journey, to not have fear. There are so many tools available, but you really are your greatest asset. And the only thing I want to say is that building radical self-belief isn't about arrogance or being overly confident. It's a quiet internal journey that sets you up with the strongest foundations to truly shine and be the best version of yourself, whatever that is going to be. And then you get the most radical relationships, most radical teamworks, and amazing outcomes when you truly realize that you've got everything you need, but you have to practice it time and time again. And I think that's really, really important. And that accountability gives us the ability to lean in and to be sovereign and to be individuals and to go, I need help. Where's my pit crew? And if you can do these things, then you can realize that overwhelm doesn't need to be a co-requisite for today's life. And you can build your foundations brick by brick, and other people will probably follow by example too. So I think I'm running out of time, Mike.
Nikki, that was super interesting, though. I've been making notes here, and I know you've got to run, so you won't be able to to deal with any of my questions.
I've got a couple of minutes. I've got a couple of minutes. I'm just watching when I'm about to go live on this other thing with the US, but I've got a couple of minutes, so please fire away.
I was just gonna make the comment that I teach, and one of the things that I've noticed that you mentioned early on is the lack of self-confidence that I see so broadly. And it's like I'm teaching engineering, but I feel like I'm really teaching life lessons more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you teach people to have confidence? How do you teach them, that the master has failed more times than you've tried? It's okay to fail, but
Yeah.
our school systems aren't built around that. And it's, when you talked about, dealing with that voice in your head, it made me remember this. I had this really good friend who was wild. He was just crazy wild, but he would actually jump out of his car. And this guy drove a Mercedes. He would jump out of his car in traffic and yell at Rufus to get out of his head, and throw him out of his car because he acknowledged that part of me I don't want it in my life today. Get rid of it. So, as you went through your talk, it was like so cool that you were hitting all these points that were so right on.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. We've got to stop fighting with ourselves, and you can't get rid of your ego, and you haven't done anything wrong. It's about this amazing alignment. I call it zero gravity in my models, which is this kind of absolute peace. And the best thing I think you can give your students is a safe place to try. Is a soft landing to utilize all different ideas around an engineering aspect, even though you need an outcome within the school, that there are different ways to approach a solution within a framework, and their individual ways of interpretation should be celebrated rather than shut down. And that builds self-confidence to be able to even come up with an idea and not feel too embarrassed to raise it. So having a classroom where kids feel they can put their hand up is the greatest reflection of building a classroom of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, I want to thank you very much.